Welcome to the channel for the first time viewers. Welcome back from my existing subscribers. Today we are going to look at Hogwarts Legacy, and this was a benchmark that was promised to the followers for a while. This is something that I don't know anything about, but we have the 7900 XTX and we have the 4090. So this is my Asus TUF model and the ASRock card. So what you'll see here is just the raw performance at 1440p ultra preset with ray tracing on. You'll see when you run through, I think this is like lower street and high low street. I don't know. It says it there, but I kind of pause here every time I pass by to take a look at the mountain, just so you can see what it's like. Look at the sky when it flies up to like 80 FPS here. And yeah, it's upper high street and like lower high street, I think. It's going to switch in the bottom left. What's funny about this is that the way this game was explained was GTA with wizards, and that kind of hooked me in there. So okay, this run right here, this pass was the ultra preset, RT on, and no upscaling. So throughout this test, you'll see FSR, one on the AMD card, and then you'll see DLSS, both on the highest quality. So you'll see quality DLSS, and I believe I did throw in a frame generation, which kind of breaks the game. I will say if you're using controller, frame generation actually does feel pretty good. So it's not something where you could look at it as like a detriment, right? So it actually feels decent when you're using frame generation on this game. But as you can see here with FSR, when we were running up that hill before, it was about 55, 60 FPS. I think I do turn back around here because I remembered I forgot to look at the mountain. So hit that 180, take a quick glance at the mountain, look at the sky. But yeah, so again, way better performance if you have FSR 2.0 turned on. I did not try it with FSR 1.0. Right now what's in the system is the 4090 along with the 7950X 3D. So I put the XTX back in the box after running some Warzone benchmarks and some other benchmarks with that card. So overall though, I think it's completely playable. Right, it's a story game. FSR did not look as good as DLSS, even with frame generation. What's weird is every now and then you would load the game, and if you have frame generation turned on, there'll be kind of like a halo, or you could see something was up, right? So something was off when you have frame generation. So the other thing too that I noticed is if you start the game with ray tracing on, you can turn them off, or you can turn off all three settings, and you kind of get your performance back without having to restart. Otherwise, if I started the game with ray tracing on or ray tracing off, and then I try to launch, turn on ray tracing features, you would see a definite detriment. The last thing is that if you're not a fan of ray tracing, the 7900 XTX does keep up with the 4090. So here it's about 150, 160 FPS, which I think is more than plenty. And that's just turning off ray tracing, right? I want to say turning on FSR 2.0 on the XTX actually lowered the performance, because you could see the GPU usage was fluctuating a lot more from being in the high 90s to wherever it ended. I think it was like in the 80s, but I was actually getting less frames when I turned on FSR because I was getting just about full utilization from the 7900 XTX with FSR off and ray tracing off. So just playing the game native is going to be your best result on that card. I'm going to cut the commentary for here, and I'll cut it back on once I get to the NVIDIA card, and I'll talk you through that.
Where's the good guy?
All right, so this is the RTX 4090, the Asus Tough. As you can see here, I'm going ahead and turning off the any of the FSR. When I turn it back on, it will be DLSS just to match the NVIDIA card. Like I said earlier, DLSS does look better. You will notice that as I run up through this lower high street, the FPS is within reach of the 7900 XTX, but the key differentiator here is the GPU utilization. So if you look at that, I'm at like 60 to 75% utilization. And also this is about where I was at with ray tracing and FSR turned on, right? So when I look up at the sky, it's like 10 FPS lower, but I'm not using any upscaling at this particular time with this card. So it's maintaining what the 7900 XTX does. You know, if I could, speed up the CPU a little bit, give it a little bit more, we'd see a bigger difference. Maybe we'd see that 100 FPS when you look up at the sky, or 100 FPS when you're running up high mid. So when we get up to this next section here, while we wait, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the overclocks. On the NVIDIA card, I'm using 1399, really 1400 on the memory, and about 140 or 160 on the core. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been 140 on the core. On the AMD card, I was using 3030 megahertz and 2714 on the memory. So that 3030 was on the core. And then the voltage was set to 1110 millivolts. So it was a slight undervolt there, and that helped out again with temperatures and to maintain that clock speed. But yeah. So here we are with DLSS Ultra Quality. Really didn't do much because at this point we are, CPU limited. So there's not going to be too much that we could do to address it in this particular scene. You will see that, again, if you do things like frame generation, other features like that, you can get a way higher frame rate. And that's an advantage that we were waiting for FSR 3.0 to release because that was supposed to have frame generation. It was supposed to be out like months ago. Still waiting to hear when that's going to come out. So before we turn ray tracing off, I just wanted to go ahead and show you all frame generation. So this was DLSS Ultra Quality with frame generation. Now with the 4070 Ti using frame generation, I was still able to get a really good frame rate. It was close to this. It was about 30 off. So it was like 110, 120 FPS. In certain scenes, it was 130, 140. So really good performance, right? And as you can see here, this is with ray tracing, this is with DLSS, and this is with frame generation. So definitely a playable experience. And like I said, with controller, it didn't feel bad. Whereas, if I was using mouse and keyboard, it'd probably be worse. But there is this caveat to, I don't know what it is, but every now and then I'll load the game. And like I mentioned before, it's just, you could tell that frame generation is on. It's like, it's off, right? Like the frame generation is weird. But for the most part, if you're using controller, it looks like you only have DLSS on. So I think that's how it should be. So again, just want to give them some props there, because I would say overall, the presentation of it is pretty good, in my opinion, right? So now we're just going to turn off ray tracing and run through with frame generation still on. And there you go. So insane FPS. I'm pretty much hitting, if you have a 240 hertz monitor, you're hitting that. And I'm even touching into my 270 hertz monitor range. So this is if you just wanted really, really high FPS. This isn't that type of game, but I felt like I'm already running through the test. Why not just include the DLSS with the frame gen and just see what comes out, right? The utilization, so you can see what the max potential is too for this game. So I'm up in the 90s this time versus like being in the 60s and the 70s. So it's removed much of that CPU limit and is generating those fake frames that, again, most of the time you're not going to be able to tell. But again, it's a good experience overall. So that's just what I wanted to talk through, both sections of this video. give you a little insight on the on what I did on the back end. The RAM is tuned. It's the same system. I did DDU between each of these. It wasn't this game specifically that I ran, but I did use DDU to remove the AMD drivers and any AMD software, reinstall the chipsets for the 7950X 3D just in case, and kind of went from there. So with that, I'll catch y'all on the flip. Hopefully y'all enjoy the rest of this this benchmark, this test per se. If there's any specific section, I do plan on playing this game a little bit more. If there's any specific section that y'all want to see, throw it in the comments, and if I get there, I'll try to upload a test of that particular section. But as it is right now, I'm just snatching up these little loose pages and doing all these side quests, and I plan on probably throughout this week just knocking out the rest of the game. So here's the native performance of what the 4090 would actually do. I want to say I turned off, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I turned off the LSS and I turned off frame gen here. So this is just the no ray tracing, no magic from NVIDIA, just straight up how fast is the 4090 in this one. So with that, I'm gonna catch you on the flip. Be easy.
The ministry's good work.
The man is telling, just to see how polite you have done that. Brilliantly creative. Very the Minister of Magic. First they teach